So this algorithm that ChatGPT wrote for us is trying to establish taking data like the petal length and the color and the size of the flower and guessing which of the three categories it fits into, right? So that's what's represented in the columns and rows. Setosa, versicolor, Rahinica, those are all of the possible categories that we have trained the algorithm to learn. So you'll notice that it's the same values on the rows and on the columns. The rows usually represent your ground truth of what the model actually says they are, versus what the columns represent your predictions or what the algorithm said they are. Right? So here you can say that for Setosas, the data set contained 50 instances of Setosa, and your algorithm correctly classified 50 of them as being Setosa. It didn't choose any of the other ones. So in other words, we were perfect for Setosa. Our algorithm did not make any mistakes in identifying the Setosa category of irises. Okay, so now we go to the next line down. Now we're saying for versicolor, it put 47 as versicolor, but in 3 of the instances, it should have been versicolor, but it chose them as Virginica. So that is how many errors? That's 3, right? 3 errors. Because it should have been under versicolor, but it put him under Virginica. Of the Virginicas that are in our training set, right? Or in our train test set, it correctly identified 49 of them as being Virginica. But 1 was classified as versicolor, which is incorrect. So the 3 plus 4 is the errors, right? That's how many errors the algorithm made. And the 150 that Yassine mentioned earlier is because we know we had 50 Setosa, 50 versicolor, 50 Virginica, total processing, total predictions or categorization tasks of 150 times. And in those 150 times, 4 were errors. So that gives you an accuracy, right? That's the whole point of that. But as you can clearly see, though, the accuracy rate differs according to the category, right? Each category can have its own error rate or accuracy rates, right? For Setosa, we're perfect, right? The algorithm didn't make any mistakes. For versicolor, we made 3, which is what, 6%, right? 6%-ish rate. And down here in Virginica, it made 1 error, which is like a 2% rate, right? So that's why these matrices are so important, because now you're going to make some changes, and then you're going to see what the next matrix is, and the matrix after that, and matrix after that, and you can kind of get a sense for where you're going with your errors, right? So Ravindran says, yeah, Ravindran, you got it right. Yeah. Setosa is correctly predicted. Versicolor is predicted 47 times, and Virginica is 49 times. Yeah. Amrapali says, yes, on board with Yassine. Yeah. Yeah, I think Yassine gave a pretty reasonable answer, right? So again, I don't like calling on anybody. I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable, but let me know. Are you guys a little bit more clarified in confusion matrices? Give me some feedback here, guys. That process that we just went through of interpreting the confusion matrix is exactly something you're going to do over and over again in your life, in your practice of data science, okay? Alan says, can you tell us what you asked ChatGPT to do in order to get this single matrix? Yeah, sure, Alan. I'll go back to that screen. Here. Is that clear for you guys? Or maybe need a little bit bigger? I think, let me bring up like a text editor or something. I can show it a little bigger. I love the question, Alan, so I want to make sure I invest time in answering your question. Here was the revised prompt, Alan. I think you guys should be able to see that pretty good. So, a couple of key things in this prompt from my experience of using ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not good about keeping the current state of the code you're working on and modifying changes. So I've had instances where unless I tell it to keep that code and be very specific about the changes, it'll write a whole other code, right? Like it'll turn logistic regression into regression instead, or just make these huge changes where you really just want a small change. So in this prompt, you have to be very specific about what you're asking it to change, right? You have to be very specific and say, this is what I want you to change, but keep the same code. Or in some cases, you'll see me say, I like this code, label this cross-validation version 1. Like you kind of bookmark it in the ChatGPT history, right? In the ChatGPT context. So this is what I used, Alan. And again, here I'm being explicit about saying only label or only change certain things. Because otherwise it'll make changes to the other parts of the code and then you know, kind of stinks, right? But that's what I use. Great question, Alan. What made you choose just the aggregate confusion matrix? Because it's helpful to see the folds along the way to kind of see how the algorithm is learning, but we just care about the bottom line, right? We're not going to deploy the folding instances of the algorithm. We're going to deploy the final model, right? So that's why I asked it to only show the aggregate one. It clears up the screen a little bit. And like I said, the other ones really aren't as relevant as they could be, right? Because that's not what we're going to deploy. That's not what the final model looks like, right? So that's why I did that, Alan. But let me go back to the terminal. But yeah, but look, I mean, let's take this another step further, right? How do we interpret this to the business? Right? We can say that we're pretty accurate, right? We're accurate overall. There are still some errors, but overall we have pretty good accuracy rate. In some classifications, we're going to be pretty good. In others, we might need a little room for improvement. But you present the business with what these numbers are, right? We're really good at Setosa. We're almost perfect on Britannica, and Versicolor might need some work. And that's it. That's all you present to them. You present them with the options, right? To say, hey, this is what the model will result. This is what it will do. And then the business can decide on, you know, mostly it will just involve the dollar values that are associated with each of those decisions, each of those errors in some cases, right? And then they'll tell you, yeah, that model looks good. You know, we can live with those results, or no, you need to modify a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make upon you guys is that's not your decision to make, right? You're a data science team, not a business team. So you're going to have to, you know, take something like a confusion matrix, write up a report on it, and translate that report into options, and then let the business make those decisions on those options, because that's ultimately, you know, kind of what they do or what they're best at, right? But I hope that made sense as far as the confusion matrix. But this is really kind of, you know, what you'll be doing as far as saying, yeah, this model's great, or no, this is terrible. Sarvesh says we can use Claude 3.5 Sonnet's artifact feature for coding. Yeah, sure. But I mean, basically all LLMs can do coding. It's just how much you're going to pay for it, right? On ChatGPT, I do have a paid membership. So I'm doing that because presumably when you would be doing this for a client, it would also be under a paid membership. But yeah, you can use Claude, you can use ChatGPT. I don't like how Claude limits the hours. They do limit how much you can use it, and I'm not on board with that. So I much rather pay for ChatGPT. I like their tools. But yeah, there's a lot of tools you can do this. Ravindran says, will it increase the number of folds to increase its accuracy? Maybe. Do we need to increase the accuracy, Ravindran? Yassine said it actually looks okay, right? We only made 4 errors. You got to know when to stop, right? I mean, you can't just, refine models forever, right? Businesses will give you a deadline. I think the model, depending on the applications, right? This is going to be a useful model for a lot of applications, a lot of business use cases. So do we need to go further? Alan says, can we benefit at all from visualizing the final result? Sure. Yeah. People visualize the confusion matrices, but keep in mind that you do not want to show that to your stakeholders, right? Even this level of math is too much, right? One of the teams I've led, when I was first assigned to lead them, I walked into one of their meetings, like it was like my second day.